an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend Season 3, Episode 1. Josh's ex-girlfriend wants revenge. In this episode, it looks like I was right about the punctuation. And I was also right in that getting back at Josh is harder than it sounds like it's going to be. I'm not sure how I feel about the conclusion we come to. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. And also, apologies for starting so late. Guys, this episode is so bananas. And I really like this episode, honestly, a lot. This was unexpected, and I should have sort of seen it coming. But the way that the episode ends made me sort of like, and by the episode ends, I mean season 2 ends. I sort of was under this impression that, like, yeah, what Rebecca said she wanted to do, which was take down Josh, would begin right away. And I don't know why I thought that was how that would go. Because regardless of how she seemed in that moment, she still went through something horrifying. So when we find out that nobody has heard from her, that makes a ton of sense to me. What we get for the opening of this episode is a huge ensemble number of everybody at the office singing about wondering where Rebecca is and what's going on with her. And then we go to her holed up at some West Covina motel hiding from the world. And this is such a weird situation. I love the fact that Paula has a whole printed statement about how she doesn't know what's going on. Please stop asking me. It's a really, really good opening. This is something that I sort of like alluded to, but didn't really like take into account just what an effect it would have on Rebecca, which is the humiliation of this and everybody in the office knowing that it happened. So I guess I had sort of assumed if it was just Paula and Nathaniel, who went to the wedding, that maybe the two of them would keep it under their hat and Rebecca would try and not like tell anybody that it went on. But then I was like, well, Daryl was there. Daryl cannot keep his mouth shut for love or money. That's not going to happen. And I'm not trying to lay the blame for everybody knowing solely at Daryl's feet, because obviously, Rebecca and Josh had been posting on social media like fucking maniacs. So I don't know if she's friends with people from work on Facebook. I always think that's a bad policy, but I understand people doing it. However, there's, I could see if she had been wanting for people to keep it under their hat, I feel like Daryl would be like probably the main obstacle, and would just, even if they managed it, would blurt something out or say something at some point and it would all begin to sort of tumble out. Rebecca deciding to hide is honestly really probably what I would do if I went through something. I don't know how I would handle. I really don't know what I would do. Like my breakup with Brendan, it was such an odd thing because it was weirdly public due to the fact that we had started Unspoiled and there were so many people sort of watching us as our relationship began to unfold and, what's the word I want? Sort of unravel. That's the one. But those were not people that were in my life. Those were not people I saw every day. And honestly, I the way that I lived at the time, where I was doing a lot of work from home stuff, I was living in a city where a lot of the friends I had were really friends of friends. Family wasn't particularly nearby. And all of the friends that I knew, like, really cared what I was going through lived kind of far, and it was tough to see them. And then I wound up moving back in with my mother in Connecticut, so I wasn't able to see them there anyway. I had, as much as it was a very sort of public breakup, a lot of distance from anybody who would care or know what was going on. And so I didn't have this sort of pressure on me, thank God. Rebecca having to, like, come back into an office where literally everybody knows what's happening is a nightmare. I would hate this so much. It's like high school. And I think a lot of people who haven't worked in that sort of environment fail to realize how much like high school people stay being. It doesn't matter how old we get, that those dynamics still fucking apply, like, everywhere you go. It's really a shame. But I am glad to see that pretty much everybody is, like, wholly on her side and just worried about her, you know? And granted, she's worried about them giving her looks of pity, and that 100% would happen. But I'm glad that she doesn't work with anybody like, what's her face, who's her old rival, because that would be worse than, like, kind of jamming it home and really emphasizing, you know, the everything that your brain tells you when you get rejected like this, that you are unworthy, that nobody likes you, that, you know, you're never going to find anyone. And I could see her really just hammering that home. I am absolutely dying to know what Rebecca's mother is thinking and doing, and how she reacted after all of this wound down. Based on what we see, Rebecca has no idea that her mother put Josh up to this. And I am just sitting waiting for her to find out. And I don't know if that will ever be a thing. I imagine that it will, because this show doesn't really like to leave plot threads like that laying around. And I imagine that is going to come up, but it might not. If it doesn't, I'm not going to be super mad about it, but I really hope it does, because I need her to understand where Josh was coming from when he proposed to her. And maybe, I don't know if that makes it better or not. You know, I think I said in the recap that I was thinking maybe if she knew that her mother had put him up to it, that it would feel a little bit less like, how could he abandon me? He's the one who proposed. He wanted this too. And it would begin to make a bit more sense. But now that I have watched this episode, I can't help but think finding out that her mother put Josh up to this might just make her feel worse, might make her feel like, oh my God, he never really wanted to be with me, and you kind of pushed him into it. And she might blame her mother for encouraging Josh to do something that he wasn't ready for either, which led to him then panicking and abandoning her this way. As much as that might be worse, it's also nice to have someone to blame. Being able to blame your mom, that makes you feel better, even if it's not exactly true. But yeah, anyway. So we have this opening number, and it's like all of the village folk talking about what's going on. And it's really, honestly, it's really funny. There's a moment in which White Josh is carrying a pig trussed up on a pole with Hector, and they're both like, everybody's singing in British accents. It's honestly, it shouldn't be as funny as it is, but I really enjoy it. And I like that they're all sort of, they are, obviously it's supposed to be like, you know, 18th century, but we have Valencia out here using an iPhone, hashtag where's Rebecca Bunch. And then we get Rebecca and her feelings of just worthlessness, embarrassment, feeling like she really made a big stance about how she was going to take Josh down, but then vanished, and how pathetic it seems. And I don't know, all of the whole, like, the way that this is being said and explained makes total sense. And I really, her devastation here feels very real in a way that I was kind of afraid we wouldn't get, you know? So we have her sitting in bed and she says, do I let him win or do I fight back? And then she begins to zero in on fight back, fight back, fight back. And then she gets this like kind of creepy smile on her face. And we see her in Covina Inn & Suites, a robe and a knit cap that says bride, pushing a shopping cart through a parking lot. It's quite an image. She says, I know what I have to do, and I have to transform. The whole look, she's transforming from a victim to a woman scorned. The whole look that she has here is akin to the look that she had in the flashback when she was in the inpatient facility. And I feel like that has to be purposeful, you know? But we see her assembling a bunch of products. I love the fact that she just went out in her robe. She is 100% past the point of giving any fucks. And what she went and got was a bunch of movie rentals, Fatal Attraction. She gets something else too. I'm forgetting which other. Basic Instinct. That's right. Because that's what the banner image for this season looks like. And hair color. She's also gotten some makeup. It looks like she got like Spanx. She's doing a bunch of stuff to try and basically give herself like a full makeover. And when we see her next, she spins around in a chair at the office when she has called everybody to a meeting that using an anonymous email, and nobody knows why they're there. And it's a pretty great moment, even though it turns out that she had to be in the office from 5 a.m. in order to make this big entrance. And she brought the chair with her also. And I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it really is. I love it so much. And she's wearing this like amazing off the shoulder white gown. Not even a gown, but it's a dress that's like, it really reminded me of the woman from the second Addams Family movie whose name I am forgetting, but she has the same sort of like vampy femme fatale, but like kind of cute vibe. And she has colored her hair dark, and I can't tell, guys, is this a wig or is this her actual hair? Because I really thought it was a wig. And now I'm beginning to think that they actually colored her hair. And I don't think the color is bad. Honestly, I think the color works well on her. But her hair itself does not look good. There's just kind of like one of those moments where I'm like, ooh. Like, I kind of did that like woman tasting kombucha meme where, I don't know, maybe, well, I went back and forth on this look a lot. And it's a pretty amazing idea that they had, because I really did not know, in terms of Nathaniel, what they were going to do. Because now that she's free and she had been wanting to sleep with him, what will happen? And I kind of wondered, would she just like jump in bed with him? Would she be totally not ready for that? I didn't know. The answer is way more fun than anything that I thought of, which is he is super attracted to her now that she doesn't give a fuck. And she doesn't give a fuck in a way that feels very real to me and not put on at all. She has other fish to fry. He is a distraction that she's not really interested in dealing with right now. And he is someone who is not used to being rejected. So he cannot, and this is just such a thing, nothing ensures that a dude will be interested like you not being interested back. It's like a fucking perfect formula. It's just, that's the way it goes. Erica says her hair is naturally season 1/2 Rebecca, so they went her hair is her hair is naturally darker than season 1 or 2, so they went kind of natural. So this is her hair. It doesn't look good. I feel like it needs something in this scene. I was just kind of like, girl, what did you do? But nevertheless, so everybody is just floored at how she looks. And I love, my hair is dark, so I look evil, but I'm wearing white, which is ironic. And Nathaniel's face when he sees her, he's just kind of obviously was not ready for this. And she stands up and leans over the desk in such a way that her boobs are filling the camera. It is amazing. She's just, good God. And Paula wants to give her a hug, and she's like, Paula, no, oh my God, I'm doing a thing, please. It's great. The whole thing is so funny and so like, it feels true to life, but also sort of like they're dunking on all the effort she put in to like pull this off. And what I kept thinking of, I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Revenge. I'm not sure how much what they do this episode is supposed to be like a direct spoof on other things. How much of it is like just a general reference or, you know, but Revenge was one of those shows that it's the classic problem. I call it the Desperate Housewives problem, where they had an excellent premise that was exactly enough for a season. And then after that one season, things flew off the rails and made no sense. And I got such like Revenge vibes from the way that she was like delivering her lines. And she like has this like very toothy way of talking now, which is sort of a Cersei Lannister type of thing. And just like really flutters her eyelashes a lot as she's talking. And this like, so coquettish, but also a little sinister. Ooh, what am I up to? It's great. It's really, really, really great. So honestly, if you are going to come back from the kind of humiliation that she endured and make an impression, coming back looking amazing is a really, really good tactic. People say the best revenge is living well. And honestly, it sounds like such a cliche, but there is nothing that people who want to see you fail hate more than you refusing to do that. And I like, if I ever like come up against a horrible breakup again, which God forbid, but if I ever do, this is going to be the shit I try and do. It's just, she was smart about it. However, it turns out she doesn't have a plan. It is really, really hard to watch the next scene. She's got Valencia and Heather and Paula all waiting. Valencia, it turns out, is having trouble getting jobs because of the way this first wedding went down, which, yeah, I could see that kind of being a curse. That was her first job, and that's what happened. That doesn't look good. Not her fault, of course, but people are very superstitious, you know? So they're all talking about all of this, like excited about getting back at Josh. Rebecca said she has the perfect plan. Paula's like, yeah, I was super worried about her, but she seems focused. Like, I think that we're going to be okay. And then she walks in and all of them are just like, God damn, girl. And then she tells them that her plan is to make cupcakes out of her poop and make Josh eat them. Honestly, guys, I was watching this episode with Owen while I was eating dinner, and it was a little rough at times. This is the worst saddest, most pathetic plan. This is grade school shit. And all of her friends are rightfully combo horrified / embarrassed for her in a way that is 100% earned. Like, she can't come up with anything else. The only other thing that she eventually comes up with, and I had said, maybe if you get back at him, you do something where it like keeps him from being able to become a priest. And I didn't even know what that would look like. Rebecca's genius idea is to film a sex tape in which he shouts, "I hate Jesus," during the moment of climax for some reason. And then that gets leaked. And then everybody, like, it somehow gets back to the priests that he says this, and they refuse to accept him. It makes no sense, and that's part of why I think she wants to pursue this. Because when we see later how they come up with a plan that will actually work, maybe, she is not excited about that. She doesn't want to get back at Josh, is the problem. And this is the thing that happens when you really are hurt. For some people, lashing out is the like something that is an instinct and comes naturally, and that is like the immediate reaction that they have. And it's just sort of an instinctive, oh, fuck you then. But I should have seen it coming, that despite Rebecca saying that at the end of the last episode, she cannot help but still care about him. And I said that I was worried enough hadn't happened and that maybe she would still try and want to get Josh back. And I am still concerned about that, because it's clear by the time we come up with our final plan, she doesn't want to hurt him because she still cares about him. She doesn't want to ruin his life. She is just too invested in him still. And while a part of me is glad that she doesn't want to do that, because in my opinion, getting back at an ex is really rarely worth it, unless they have done something very specifically harmful that you feel you need to tell people about so that no one else like winds up in the position that you wound up in. That's not even getting back at that ex. That's doing something responsible. But if you're just trying to like get back at them for your own petty reasons, it usually just makes you look bad. And that was something that I was really relieved that Brendan saw when we split up, because, you know, I left him for someone else, which is more than enough reason in a lot of people's minds for him to be extremely shitty to me throughout our breakup. And don't get me wrong, he still wasn't great, but he didn't do anything hurtful purposefully. You know, he wasn't just an asshole, which he could have made life much harder for me than he wound up doing. And I like to think that if I were to go through something like that again, and I were the really wronged party, I would not descend to that level either. I can't guarantee that though, you know, because when you are in the moment and hurt by somebody that you didn't think would do that to you, the anger, I mean, I've always had anger issues. It might get the better of me. I don't know. But yeah, so there's a part of me that's like, I'm proud of Rebecca for seeming to not really want to do this. But on the other hand, I feel concerned at the fact that I think it comes from a place of still caring about him, which means that there's still a possibility that they get back together, which I do not want at all. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So she tells them the plan and they all try and be like cool about it, but steer her towards something else. And she's really like hurt that they don't like her idea. And then she tells them the sex tape idea, and they all feel like they sort of have to support her now because she was so upset that they didn't like the first idea. And Paula, what she says, which makes a lot of sense, is that as a parent, the more that you tell kids they can't have a thing or can't do a thing, the more they want to have or do it. So what you've got to do is let it ride out and let them like go as far as you can responsibly let them go, and fuck up and then let the chips fall where they may, and they will likely figure out that this was a bad idea, but they've learned a lesson. And it sucks because you have to allow them to fuck up, but you also sort of accomplish something by doing that. And I really like when she laid that out, I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying, Paula. And the other girls do too. She has to talk them down a couple of times from stopping Rebecca from doing this. But eventually we get to a point where even Paula is like, no, okay, no, forget it. We are stopping all of this. I will be talking about what goes on with Daryl and White Josh a little bit later. But we have the casting call that Rebecca does for an Asian guy who looks like such and such. And what we wind up getting, I am pretty much positive, right, is the actor who plays Josh in a fake nose and a wig. It's amazing, honestly. Like, it's so stupid, but I really, really liked it. Like, it was really funny. And Josh trying to do like this British accent, and it's not that bad. Like, you know, it's not great, but it could be worse. It's honestly amazing. The whole idea. Oh God. So they're doing the casting call. He walks in. They're all a little bit flipped out at how much he looks like Josh, obviously not really like prepared for somebody who is such a perfect match. And I love the expression on all of their faces as he goes through a variety of American accents, and he bows to Rebecca before leaving in this certain way that it's clear in that moment Rebecca sees Josh. This whole plan, we find out later, is because she's kind of like wanting to get to like have a version of Josh back, and it's awful. So I was so confused by this, and it turns out that there's a good reason for it. Nathaniel rolls up, and he's all sweaty, and he's got his little phone thing on his arm, and obviously has been out for a run, but like he's at Rebecca's place, and I was just like, what is he doing here? And it turns out that what he's trying to tell her was that he was like in the neighborhood and his phone ran out of juice, and he wants to come in and charge it if that's okay. It's honestly so sad. Nathaniel, buddy, what are you doing? It's amazing to me that he has descended like this quickly. I'm 100% here for it. Don't get me wrong at all. I'm not trying to like criticize the script, but oh man, you know? So this is so good. She says, wait, wow. My phone ran out of juice. Really? Listen, buddy, you're talking to the queen of, I just happen to be here. I get what's happening. Listen, I know we kissed and you helped me with my dad and you were clearly developing some kind of sparkly little girl heart twinkly feelings for me. But then I came back as this espresso haired vixen and you feel low status, which I get. I get it. Okay, status reversals, they're confusing and arousing and probably never happened to you before. And now you are understandably obsessed with me. And he says, that's not it at all. Not at all. And she says, no, really? And walks up to him and says, you're not mesmerized by my sudden lack of interest, my cold, unavailable vibe? And he says, no. Oh, how interesting, 'cause your thin shorts say otherwise. And then backs away and says, listen, buddy, I would be happy to take you for a tumble sometime. But right now, I'm really distracted with something else, so just move along. Yeah. And then she walks away. And it is honestly one of the most satisfying moments of this entire show. Oh, is this not a dream scenario for so many of us? It's not even about the fact that, like, he's been such an asshole, you know? And he was like, oh yeah, we should have sex, and just assumes that, like, well, you know, she's several levels below me. So obviously, if I suggest we have sex, she will be delighted that I would be willing to deign to sleep with her and absolutely accept this. I love that she's putting him in his place, R.E., that whole thing. But then to have it just be just in general, a guy who is so unused to being in this position, and a girl that we have seen for 2 seasons be so desperate to make herself likable to somebody who isn't interested. This moment of her getting to tell him to fuck right off, that, yeah, maybe I'll fuck you at some point, whatever. Who cares? I don't have time for this right now. It's not even just a rejection. That would be not as good. It's I'm putting you on a shelf and letting you wait there until I'm ready for you, because I know you will wait there. I am not worried about you going off with somebody else, because I absolutely have a hold on you now, and you are going to sit there until I take you down off the shelf, which is a power play that is just akin to 1 or 2 moments in my life that were very satisfying, and I should have ridden out even longer than I did, to be honest. It's so great. And it's so great to see later on, he sends this girl into the conference room in order to get Rebecca to see the date that he's about to go on, because she's like this super hot blonde with these giant eyes and these legs. He wanted you to see me, so this is what I look like. And he runs in and says, that is not what I said, okay? I was very specific about what I wanted with Casting Call magazine. And then he realizes that he fucked it all up. And Rebecca is looking at him like, seriously? And he tries to brush it off like it was like, oh yeah, I didn't say any of that. You didn't hear any of that. And Paula says, what was that? And Rebecca says, honestly, it's so heartbreaking. I can't even. And she just like moves on to the next thing. It's just so great. Oh, I loved it so much. It's so satisfying. I love it so much. Okay. So let's back it up a little bit to the whole scene where Paula finally puts her foot down. Because Rebecca basically says that maybe for the sex tape to work, she should just actually have sex with fake Josh. And everybody in the room is just like, girl, what are you saying? What do you know? Oh my God, are you serious? Yeah, let's just do it for real. Okay, somebody get me a condom. They're in my dresser. We may not need to use condoms. Paula, look up the statutes for porn in the state of California for condom use. You know what? Let's do one with a condom, one without a condom. That way we've covered our bases. And that is it. Paula puts everything down and is like, we are absolutely not doing this. Throws Rebecca a robe. Tells this dude to get out who keeps asking for a bagel. And then we get the moment of truth from Rebecca where she finally actually tells them how she's feeling. She says, I guess I just thought if I could be near a Josh, even a fake one, that things would become clear, because I haven't seen the real Josh since before he left me at the altar. I haven't seen him or talked to him. So I thought if I made the sex tape, maybe he could see the tape and he would know. And this was this was a horrible idea. And all of a sudden, as she's saying it, she like realizes. Finding out that she hasn't even spoken to him since this all went down. He didn't even call, text, nothing. Truly makes it so much worse. It's bad enough for him to handle things the way he did. Like, quite on the surface, leaving her this way was already horrifying. I'm not saying if you really like decide that you don't want to marry a person, you should just go ahead and do it because that's the nice thing to do. But he did not have to absolutely be a no-show with no explanation and expect his priest to deliver the message. But to find out that, how long has it been by this point? It's been like a week and change or something. That he hasn't tried to get in touch and say anything to her. I should have known he'd handle it this way because Josh hates confrontation. Josh is not a brave person. And I should have realized that the way he was going to choose to handle it was to not handle it. This is the thing that a lot of guys do where they're afraid of being the bad guy. So they just avoid the conversation and choose to ghost you. And that is what makes them the bad guy. They don't get that. Like, rejection sucks. Nobody likes rejection. If I'm into you and you tell me you don't want to see me anymore, of course I'm going to be upset. That's just how it goes. But you remember the people who just said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling it. I'm not interested in going out again. You don't remember those people the way you remember the person who just disappeared. You know, there's a real cowardice to that my respect absolutely plummets on that front. And if I needed anything more to ensure that I do not like Josh, that was it. I haven't been a huge Josh fan this whole time. Y'all have known that. But that really is the icing on the cake. That is unforgivable. I can't believe that that's how he chose to handle it. So they tell her, we are here to help you take down Josh, but we are not going to help you take down yourself at the same time. We will absolutely do whatever, but that it's not going to be like this. And then we get a scene of them all hanging out together and drinking. And it turns into a wonderful, weird, it's sort of like a Donna Summer type video. And it's let's generalize about men. And this is excellent. Owen was so delighted watching this, and he just kept saying, this is the best. This is the best. The whole song is talking about how we are going to use blanket statements and a broad brush to talk about how garbage all men are. And honestly, no problem with it. None at all. At all. I am 100% here for it. It's fine with me. And I like the fact that this song manages to acknowledge how unfair it is and how incorrect it is and how like purposefully blind they are being to the fact that what they're saying isn't true of all men because they are upset, and also doesn't exactly apologize for that. There comes a point at which Rebecca's like, well, what about gay men? And then they talk about like another generalized statement about how all gay men are great and all of them are really sweet and all of them are super sassy and funny and never mean, which is also patently untrue. But yeah, this whole thing is great. And I love the beauty shop look to it, the different colored like smocks that they're all wearing, the whole thing. It's such a great look. And they eventually take it off and they're all wearing like the same color coordinated like power suits with shoulder pads underneath. And if the song eventually ends with Paula, after they say all of this stuff about how like men are garbage, men are trash, all men are like this, Paula says something like, oh my God, but I have sons. And the song ends with, your sons are going to be rapists. And that's the end of the song, which is a bold move. It's very, very good. Erica says, I love this song. I have 2 related videos for it. One is the table read and one is the Russian dub. Oh God. Going to post them on Mighty Networks. Oh, I'm sorry, Erica too. Erica posted a bunch of stuff for season 2 that I missed, and I have to go and watch them. Rachel Bloom says this song manages to be both feminist and anti-feminist at the same time. 100%. And that's what is so good about it. It's like, yeah, we are doing this thing and we acknowledge all the flaws in what we're saying and how like unfair this is. Also, fuck y'all, we're saying it anyway. And you can just sit there and listen to us say it and just sit on it, you know? And sometimes that's just how it be. It's fine. So this leads to a really weird scene in which it comes up because Valencia says, I can't even book a wedding because of him. His jilting you has completely ruined my business. I should totally sue his ass or something. And Paula then is like, oh my God, we should sue him. And it becomes this thing where everybody's talking about how brilliant Paula's idea is. And Valencia is like, but it was my idea. But I said that. And eventually it ends with her just being like, am I dead? How did I die? It's a weird moment. And I wonder if they're going to come back to that. Like, what happened there? What are we meant to think? Is that going to go on for a minute? Is this going to be a thing where somebody else says a thing and Valencia gets ignored, and why? But yeah, I don't know what to think of that. But yeah, so anyway, this is what Paula says. There's tons of case laws that justify suing him on Rebecca's behalf on several fronts, breach of contract, alienation of affection, financial damages. And Heather is absolutely into this idea. And even Valencia, who is annoyed that Paula sort of took her idea, seems to be behind it. Paula says, this is perfect. You get to humiliate Josh publicly. You get to maintain your dignity, and you become a hero in the process. Is that true? I don't see that. I don't see suing the guy who left you at the altar as being something that maintains your dignity. And I definitely don't see it as her being the hero at all. I mean, at all. I don't think that's not pathetic in its way. Is that just me, guys? And that's not to say that, like, it's not somewhat justified, because of course it is. I was talking in another episode about the amount of money that they poured into this wedding and Rebecca to get like the wedding date from the other person so that it was moved up. But first of all, Josh doesn't have anything worth taking. He's got no money. So you really are going to wind up like, I don't know what you wind up accomplishing. Does he have to take out a loan to pay you the damages? And doesn't that really amount to you suing his parents? Because that's who's going to wind up paying for shit. Like, and also, I just feel like this is sinking a ton of energy into this that is better spent figuring out how to like move on with your life. I don't know. I don't really like it. And I don't feel like Paula's assertions about it are actual, factual, correct assertions and assumptions. And Rebecca says, that's a great idea. It's hard to argue why that isn't the perfect idea. In a definite moment of Rebecca not really wanting to do this, clearly. Like, she's just not really on board. And I'm worried about how she is going to stand in the way of this while trying to pretend that she is helping. Because that's what's going to happen, right? She is going to kind of try to kneecap it without letting them know that's what she's doing, I assume. And that's going to be really awkward. So anyway, that's that. And then we're going to back up and we're going to talk about Paula and her husband. So it turns out, in true lawyerly fashion, Paula created like a contract with her husband about the stages in which they will pursue him re-entering the bedroom. And it was an interesting thing because he's like talking about how he's looking forward to taking this lie detector test again. And there's like a sign in, sign out sheet that he has to sign and stuff. And he has no problem doing all of this stuff. He seems to really believe that it's only fair. And I appreciate that a lot. But there's supposed to be like, I think 3 lie detector tests that he has to pass before he's allowed to sleep in the bed again. And honestly, I was very thrown by the first scene where he's talking about, I'm going to take that lie detector test tonight and I'm looking forward to it. You can see that Paula is like a little nervous about it. And there is a sense from her that despite the fact that this is in the contract, she doesn't really feel ready for it. She doesn't seem to exactly want him back in the bed. And I was kind of like feeling that this was just about the proximity of him when she hasn't fully forgiven him, really, in her heart. But then the next scene that we see between the two of them is her talking about Rebecca wanting to make this fake sex tape. And her husband says, speaking of sex, how about we get this lie detector test started? And I realized that the assumption here was that if I pass this 3rd lie detector test, I'm getting back into bed, which means I get to have sex with you. And honestly, I was not ready for that. It is one thing to be able to sleep in the same bed as me, but that and you getting to have sex with me are 2 entirely separate issues. And I would not be as willing to conflate the two as they seem to be. It seems that both he and Paula assume being allowed back in the bed is just tantamount to the same thing. It's you also get to sleep with me. So once I realized that was what was on the table, I started to realize like where Paula's trepidation was really coming from, which becomes very clear regarding the series of questions that she asks of him. It turns out Paula has a lot of, she is understandably having a lot of hang-ups about the fact that he slept with another woman, and it seems like that was due to the fact that he is not attracted to her anymore, and that he wants that other woman more than he wanted her. Now, seeing what happened the night that he wound up sleeping with Tanya, I wondered, like, it seemed to me, of course he had to have been attracted to her in order to sleep with her, which he says, and I so appreciated how honest he is during this lie detector test where he's like, yeah, I am attracted to her. I did the thing with her. Like, I have to be. But there's a real sense to the fact that he felt so rejected by Paula and like neglected by her because she was so wrapped up in her school and stuff that it was much more about simply wanting attention from somebody who seemed invested and who seemed to notice him, you know, in a way that Paula was sort of failing to notice him. And that's not to put the blame on Paula at all. He chose to do what he chose to do, but it made sense to me. That's why this was happening. And Paula, totally understandably, is seeing it solely as he was more attracted to that woman than he is to me. And I really would like for them, I'd like to see the conversation they have about how it went down, because I'm not sure she knows how hurt he was and how much that played into him sleeping with Tanya. It's unclear to me if that gets brought up. And I'm not entirely sure how he brings that up without it seeming like he's blaming Paula, you know? But either way, this leads to Paula agreeing to sleep with him, but telling him to call her Tanya during sex. And then afterward, the two of them laying next to each other in bed and her saying, we are never, ever going to speak of this ever again. And it is honestly a really like brutal moment, and I felt so bad for her husband, like he's trying to navigate this thing, and there is absolutely no way to like be cool about your wife wanting to role play as the woman you cheated on her with. Like, what do you do with that? You know, I have no idea what that was, and I never want to discuss it. And later on, she asks like Heather, and Heather gives her the complete 100% straight answer of exactly what the fuck just happened there. And I really enjoyed Paula being like, oh, goddamn. Yeah, I guess that is exactly what was going on there. I'm trying to find the spot because Heather does it so succinctly. Here it is. It's horrifying, but the sex was amazing. How can that be? I hate Tanya. Well, sounds like the only way you can feel sexy right now is to imitate the female he chose instead of you. Like, you feel insecure, so you want to be the transgressive harlot he temporarily desired over you. It's great. I've been thinking about becoming a life coach or a mime. Ah, Heather, you're the best. Never change. So then we have another scene in which they go to have sex and she tells him to call her Paula. And everything seems to be resolved. Fingers crossed, everything is okay now. Let's go back to Daryl and White Josh. There's a really weird thing going on here. So it turns out that White Josh has been working on these protein bars that are made with ant protein. And he says something about how like it's the best protein in the world or something. But he doesn't seem to actually have any science to back that up. It's just, you know, let's see. These bars contain the purest, most powerful form of protein on Earth. Ant protein. And Daryl says, is that true? And he says, I have no idea, but I do know that ants are strong as hell. So Daryl takes a bite. And I gotta say, guys, Daryl being super supportive of Josh in this, or it's not like we know in a second that it turns left because Daryl has to make everything lately about having kids together. But the purity of this moment, how anxious Josh is about whether he likes it or not, and how sincerely Daryl really likes it. I'm definitely getting the ants, but I'm also getting caraway, dates. Here comes the cinnamon. And Josh says, it's good. And he says, oh, it's amazing. He says, all right, I don't have a name yet, but I think after 2 years, I finally nailed the recipe. And Daryl says, it's amazing. I am so proud of you, baby. You are taking this idea from conception to birth through childhood to a really moving high school graduation where it makes a speech about its two cool dads. And he says that thinking that he's being subtle. And Josh gets very upset by this. And he says something here that he unwittingly gives Daryl the exact opening that Daryl needs to fixate, which is he says, we'll wait until my bars take off, that till this business gets off the ground, and then we can talk about the kid thing. And it's really it's so Daryl that I'm surprised that Josh didn't see it coming. But what Daryl hears is, oh good, if I help your bars become a success, then we get to have the kid. So we cut to him at home base. That's the name of the place, right? In a full anteater costume to promote these bars, which are called anteaters. And he's gotten a whole bunch of labels made for them. And it's really, really intense. And the thing is, if it weren't for the fact that he was doing this for all the wrong reasons, this would seem super supportive. But he's doing this because he wants to get it out of the way. You know? It's just I felt so bad because White Josh is honestly really hurt by this. Josh, when he sees that he's like got them all wrapped and he sort of took the project away from him. Josh says, "You took my bars out of your fridge? You left them there for a reason. That's what my dream interpreter said." God. This fucking dangling tongue, too, while he's talking. And he says, "And people love them. Now your career is on its way, so we can move on to tinier, cuter things." And Josh is like, "Oh, God, I see what's happening here." Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I thought Josh was going to dump him here. I really did. Because he is being extremely pushy about a thing that Josh is not only unsure about, but not like particularly having any interest in at all. So I kind of thought Josh was going to be like, "Daryl, dude, I can't do this anymore. I am not, no, And instead, he says, "Maybe you're right. Maybe we do need a therapist." Which I was like, glad that he cares enough about Daryl and is committed enough to the relationship that he was willing to consider doing that instead of immediately dumping him. Obviously he feels pretty invested if he is willing to like make the time to go sit down with a professional and talk about this. So then we have the scene where Daryl misrepresents what happened, and they're in Dr. Akopian's office, but it's her husband that's meeting with them. He says, he's mad at me because I dressed in an anteater costume, but it was for a very good reason. Josh is like, "That is not why you did it. You're trying to pressure me into having a baby, even though I don't know if I ever want to do that." And Daryl, honestly, he says, "Oh, so now you hate babies." And I was like, real irritated by this and understood completely. Josh's response to this is, "I didn't say I hate babies. You're taking things to a complete extreme. You got so excited about a baby that you took these protein bars from 0 to 1,000. You go very hard." And then he mentions a distant relative being Native American. You literally changed your name the next day and your office is filled with Native American paraphernalia. And Daryl says, "That's who I am. I'm enthusiastic, and you chose me knowing that. I thought you liked it." And Josh says, "I do like it, but also sometimes it drives me nuts." And Daryl says, "So you think I'm an idiot?" And Josh is like, "Oh my God, no, that is not what I said." And Daryl says, "Well, maybe I am an idiot. But you know what? This idiot in 2 days has done more with your idea than you've done in 2 years. This idiot co-owns a very successful law firm. Well, okay, a successful law firm, and is a magnificent father. Now, look, I know I got way out ahead of you about the baby, and I'm sorry, and I'll stop it. But I'm a catch. Start acting like it." And I got to tell you guys, I didn't feel this. Daryl was out of line, and he turns this around to be Josh's fault. And I don't like it. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, don't get me wrong. I do kind of like the fact that the show is making an effort to make it seem less that, wow, Daryl's really dating out of his league. And they're pointing out maybe Josh is dating a little out of his league. And it's just in a very different way than how we are used to evaluating that sort of thing. That's fine. But Daryl was being super aggressive with a business that is not his. All of this is stuff that Josh should have had a say in. The naming of it, the creation of the art for the wrappers, everything about it is stuff that he should have. He says, "I did more with it in 2 years than you." Well, he was creating a recipe, which is the entire basis of this thing, acting like you took a finished product and ran with it. That's not the same thing as creating it. I did not think that was fair at all. And Josh's response to him saying you need to start acting like it felt really weird. Josh says, "You know what? You're right. I'm sorry. Maybe I have been a little too judgy." my friends all say I'm judgy. And guys, this is the best line. My friends all say I'm judgy, but I never listen to them because I don't ever listen to them or care what they say because they're stupid idiots, which is honestly the most relatable shit. But I just, did this seem like the wrong conclusion to anybody else? Like, this just didn't make sense to me. I felt like Daryl was arguing a point that was totally other than the point they were originally coming here to discuss, which is the fact that he is being very aggressive about the baby thing, which Josh is not interested in. And he keeps saying that he'll try and lay off and be cool, and he keeps not doing that. And he's aware that he's not doing it, but then apologizes like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, it got away from me. And I'm like, I don't buy that, man. You went and like did this whole thing expressly to get the business out of the way so that you could then go back to your thing. That's not cool. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's just because like I have a business of my own that I created and I really like feel protective of it because it's mine. And I just don't like the way this got turned around on Josh. I don't know. And granted, Josh is too judgy, but that's like not what was happening here to me at all. It was a weird moment. But anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much everything in the episode, I think, right? Oh no, I forgot. We end with Rebecca deciding to make her poop cupcakes after all, which just, oh, Rebecca, what are you doing? What are you doing, girl? So, all right, that is the end of season 3, episode 1. Thank you guys very, very much for listening. Thank you again to Megan for commissioning this episode. And I will be seeing you all again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.